Hi and welcome. This is part two, or should I say take two. Okay, this is the book, and there is some very, very small writing, so bear with me with the reading. Yes, yes, yes. Like I said in part one, look, the contents. Very small. It's a very nice book. There's some really interesting titles, and I just wanted to get started. Mainly because the words are small. Would yes, I would like to hear this again. And if I'm reading it and recording it, it could be shared. So, here we go. When the student is ready, the teacher disappears. Yes. So remember when we're saying I is not me. This is a reading from this book. Okay. So, the author writes, I write these words as a blanket of snow falls over New York City. The predictions didn't call for this much accumulation, but it's the perfect backdrop for an alchemical, yes, that's how I pronounce it, tale that must be told. I, the author, encountered my first alchemist when I was 15 years old. At that time, I didn't recognize her so as much. But looking back, the signs are as clear as Saturn's rings. Her name was Miss Parsons. At nearly 17 years old, she was the head of the art department at the boarding arts high school, and I was fortunate to attend. She oversaw the ceramics, smithing, sculpture, fiber, and painting departments, and she did so with a watchful eye. I found out years later it was she who accepted my earnest but novice art portfolio and convinced the school to offer me a scholarship, as my family was in no position to pay for tuition at a private school. After receiving news of the offer, I left my small hometown in Michigan and never returned. I spent the next 3 years learning to draw, sculpt, and paint under her strict but loving eye. The mysterious and alchemical path of the artist would guide my way from that point on. This is still part of the first page. It's a very small book. Um, it initiated the intrigue that led me to this very moment where I sit watching the still falling snow and trying as best I can to introduce you to the intricate yet robust magic that is alchemy. And that was the first page. Yes, thoughts came by. I let that go, and now it's gone. Yeah. So it is a pretty interesting book, but I want to let my thoughts go too. Expression is important. What made Miss Parsons an alchemist, you ask? You didn't ask. It's in the book. Let us first begin with her lipstick. Okay. There must be some powerful stuff there. Now, Miss Parsons had an elusive beauty about her. Made more so by her age and her androgyny? Don't ask. There was a rumor. No, we don't really do rumors, but we're reading. It's a reading, you all. She came from the New York fashion world. There was also a rumor that long ago she had a fiance who died in the Korean War, and since then she was celibate, dedicated only to the arts. As her students, all we knew for sure was that she was stoic. Now, that one I may need to look up. Stoic. Intimidating, and ran a very tight ship. With her, we learned to carve alabaster stone, to make glazes and ships, to mix plasters and pigments. She never seemed to tire. Regardless of her age, her work was her entire world, and we were part of it. Every day, and I mean every day, she wore straight leg corduroy pants, a wool sweater over a plaid button up steel toe boots, and a Carhartt jacket. Her hair was trimmed short, and her fine features contrasted with horn rimmed glasses. Though she had no taste for elaborate adornment, jewels, dresses, or frills, she had an eye for beauty and duality as any true alchemist does. Yes, that came back. Expressions, expressions, expressions. So, on special occasions and student exhibitions, she offset her, let's say, pronounce it, utilitarian style with the most exquisitely surprising fire red lipstick. This chromatic contrast was her signature look, one that alumni talked about to this day. As you will learn, the alchemist knows and summons the symbolic resonance of color. They revel in the pleasure of the senses and in the unexpected pairing of opposites. Power awakens through polarity. Miss Parsons knew the mesmerizing effect it had. You may be tempted to think lipstick is meaningless. What does it matter? Sit in book. But the alchemist answers everything matters. Every ingredient, every little instance is an opportunity to witness divinity in the material. Everything matters. They have a point there, and it does. The second sign that Miss Parsons was an alchemist were the philosophies she taught, lived by, and instilled in me. These I must pass on to you, as I have found them to be simple yet profound. Living by these principles, she said, is how one becomes an artist. She promised that, if followed daily, the rest of life, including a creative career, would fall into place. Interesting. But everyone has their own way and their own path, and you can only go by what resonates with you. However, let's move on in her book. 1. Make your bed. Remember, there's a lesson in everything. Everything. Just need to find it. It's all for our good. 2. Eat your oatmeal. Yes. Some sugar, a little bit of something else. 3. Play with your ice cream. Secrets are everywhere. 4. Your tools reflect your mindset. 5. Everything is alive. 6. Energy is visible. Train your eyes. 7. Nature is the teacher. 8. The truth is in the material. I'll leave the first 7 further explanation because part of the aim of this introduction is to prep you for the alchemical journey you have embarked on, which is shrouded in mystery. It is up to you to test her theories. That said, the final of Miss Parsons' axioms, the truth is in the material. I must delve into now as it draws us deeper into the alchemical vessel. It was during my junior year of high school. Each student in my sculpture class was given the task of building a large scale. Still on this book, but I wanted to get past this first part because it's important. There's little bits of information and things in there that you want to hold on to, or if you're really into books. And this is really different. That's what I was going to say. But this is my now. Everything is not the same. So let's do the different. Okay. It's different from the things that are on the site also. So, but that's all good. So let's go back to the beginning of that sentence. It was during my junior year of high school. Each student in my sculpture class was given the task of building a large scale abstract sculpture out of plaster. Sounds interesting. After having our concept and sketches approved, we started building amateurs from wood and chicken wire, building out the form with paper machete and and eventually refining the plaster surfaces. The process took several months. The sculpture I chose, the author, to make was a giant sphere with a small orb floating inside, visible only through a crack on either side. A simple rendition of it is this. This is that little picture that I showed you earlier. Okay. Building a giant hollow sphere is harder than it seems. Turns out, gravity rules the planets. and plaster. Each layer added to my frustration, his frustration, not mine. I couldn't make it perfect. My workstation was messy and my plaster tools rusted and caked with debris. I wanted to give up. Most days I hated the sculpture and I resented Miss Parsons for being so observant of my struggles. Everything is a lesson. Why was she holding us to such high standards? We were only kids. Eventually, she asked me to meet with her privately. They didn't seem much different in age, really, but it's interesting. Her tiny office just off the sculpture room was filled with books of Chinese art, Egyptian art, Renaissance art, modernism, Shakespeare, Taoism, you name it. I stared at the stacks, wanting to disappear into the pages, and my eyes began to water. I would never be the artist. What did it all matter anyway? She watched me in silence. I wanted to tell her I couldn't complete my sculpture, that I would accept an F in the class. Okay, instead, what came out of my mouth was the truth. My parents are getting a divorce, I said. She sat in stillness as I cried. In a few moments, she asked me to look in out into the studio and describe my abstract sculpture to her. Though confused, I did my best. It's a big empty sphere, I said, splitting in two, and there's a smaller sphere floating inside. Yes, she said, the materials tell the truth. That is the secret of art. You are the sphere inside. You have made exactly the thing you needed to see. What do you mean? I asked. Finish your work, she said. I returned to my sculpture and picked up my bucket, mixing powdered plaster into lukewarm water just as she taught us to do. Not too hot, or the plaster would run thin, not too cold, or it would never congeal. Before she left that day, she said, I bet you thought you were working on a sculpture. Maybe the sculpture has been working on you. The next one. 22 years later, I sit transfixed by this memory and by the snow that continues to fall outside my window. Soft, mesmerizing crystals falling from the sky, silencing the bustle of the city. I can't help but think there is meaning in it. The alchemist always asks, what can be observed in this moment? What are the elements telling us? In this instance, I know the answer. It was snowing the day Miss Parsons died in 1999. I was 19 years old. I stood by her hospital bed and watched the light of her will finding fading before my eyes. I didn't know what to say. She was not a woman of many words. She thanked me for visiting. She told me she believed in me. The snow continued to fall in the thick flakes. The last thing I remember her saying is, Kim, art is not the most important thing. I did not understand. Her whole life was art and its creation. She looked at me, lips dry and thin, ruby red color, never again to grace them. I waited for her to finish the sentence. Kim, art is not the most important thing. The most important thing is. To this day, I can't remember what she said. It is as if a vacuum sucked the answer from the air straight into the void. I have relived this moment again, relived this moment again and again and again, desperately trying to grasp the word from the azure vault of my memory. There is nothing there. The last word my beloved teacher said to me is gone. This is perhaps the greatest teaching I will encounter in my life. It is the alchemist's unattainable conundrum, the sacred elixir, the fountain of youth, the philosopher's stone that remains forever beyond our grasp, according to them. The answer is the riddle itself. Alchemy is not a scholarly pursuit or a scholarly achievement. It is a humble engagement with the elements of the world, again and again. Idin mutata resurgio. So what I found was there are some words in here that are not quite English, and that was it. Could be German. No, something. I have to look at it. But they're also on the cards. There's English, and then there's another language. It was ancient Greek. That's what it was. It was ancient Greek on the cards. Okay. Although changed, I arise the same. I guess that's what that means. Although changed, I arise the same. Probably shouldn't try to pronounce that again because I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. My duty is to wake up each day, make my bed, eat my oatmeal, and be devoted to the materials of my life. I draw, collage, write, and paint the cards within this deck, hoping there is meaning within them that will sustain. I draw thousands of tiny dots onto certain cards and brush big washes of color over others. I do my best to let the materials speak their own kind of language. This deck is not my magnum opus. My magnum opus is the constant practice of not knowing and not having the answer, yet showing up in devotion to the search in this way. I remain a student, trusting the alchemical mottos. One door opens, the next, and more will be revealed. It's no surprise Miss Parsons' middle name was Noble. Some define alchemy as the pursuit of transforming what is base into what is noble. Some say alchemy is about secret, unexpected ingredients. I believe that without Miss Parsons, it is unlikely there would be a book resting in your hands or ink leading your eyes from left to right as you read these words. Her devotion to creativity travels through me to you at this very moment. She is the secret ingredient in this deck, in the shape and in the nuance of these words. She taught me to be teachable. The first and only requirement on the alchemical path, in honor of Miss Jean Noble Parsons, I present to you the mysteries of the wild unknown alchemy deck. And now I put in my red and now I put on my red lipstick and walk out into the world of falling snow. That was the introduction. That's about what we're going to get tonight. And that was, wow, 26 minutes. But the next title is about the hive of influence. That can be part two. Have a great night.